Welcome to my YouTube channel, and I'm happy to see you here. If you're new to this channel, kindly subscribe. I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy the content. And if you guys notice, I've kind of changed the arrangement. I'm actually trying to experiment. I'm trying to create my studio within the house, but before then, I would like to make use of what I have. So let me guys what you think, this setup or the old setup, and then I would definitely make the adjustment. But don't let me take so much of your time. In this video, I'm going to be doing another breakdown, and I got so much comments and so much encouragement for the last breakdown. I feel like I need to do another breakdown. This one is actually from one of my favorite personal projects, Explore. I actually had fun working on this, so I'll be doing the breakdown. Don't forget the project file is the link in the description. And if you actually do enjoy it like this, make sure you do like it. Make sure you do, subscribe if you are new, definitely. So I'll see you guys after the video. Alright, so I'm going to start by breaking this scene into 4 major parts. So this is the first one, and this is the second, this is the third, this is the fourth. So if I scroll over this, these are all the shapes I introduced from the beginning. Then we have all of this stacking on top of each other. Then I have this, and then I have the word explore at the end. So the very first thing I worked on was to work on the sound, make sure that I was able to make use of a good sound that I can really cut to, and the sound was actually quite inspiring for me. And basically what I did, so let me open this up first. So I have them each in different scenes. So this sphere has its own scene, and then the other ones have their own scenes as well. So let's just start with this. Here we have the background. So if I solo this is the background, and it's a shape layer. You can also use solid and use gradient ramp, but I did shape layer on the shape, and I actually added gradient this way on it. And then after that is the radio wave. So let me solo this so that I can see what I'm doing. With a little of the same token, this is what I was able to achieve. But normally it will automatically animate this for you. And if you notice, it's on overlay, right? So it gives this cool color blend. So I didn't reduce the opacity. All I did was to use overlay blend mode. And then the next thing I have is the starburst. By the way, I actually have a full tutorial now. I get to achieve all of this right from scratch. This particular scene right from scratch. Just check one of my previous tutorials, you get to see them. So this is starburst. So let me unsolo this. This is it without. So let me uncheck the effect one at a time. So basically I added fill first, right? Make it white, and then I added CC starburst. I actually added the mask too. The mask was to make sure that we don't have enough stars at the center, and I increased the feather a lot. And the good thing about starburst is by default it animates. You just bring it closer to your view. So but I had to actually have to slow that down by reducing the speed. So that's how I get to achieve that. And then the next thing is just the sphere, which I think is the main thing here. I get to achieve this sphere animation. So let's just go into the pre-composition, and then in the pre-composition you can see that I have main sphere. So let me solo this. So this is the main sphere. If I take a look at the one on top, that's the wave. So if I solo this too as well, you can see the waves on it, but this is what I actually did. So let me just make sure it's not matted. It's actually in a pre-comp, and I actually parented everything to this null. So that's why it's giving it this rotation. But then let us go into the just wave. Basically what I did was to have to draw a line. So let me unsolo this, and let me go into this, and then let me deactivate the wave. So basically it's just a stroke line with 213 pixels, and I actually applied gradients, right? I make sure it was linear gradient I applied on it, and I just make sure the color is this way. And basically I activated the wave, and I make sure that I animated the phase, and I actually added a time expression to this, so it's just keep going. But in addition to that, I really needed to go really fast right at this point, because the sphere was going up, so I needed that corresponding flow of animation. So that's why I actually added this. And if you also check my expression, it's not just times 50, it's times 50 plus the value. That's how I was able to add this animation, even though there's expression on it. So let me close this, and then basically what I did was to just duplicate, then offset, and change the color a little bit, and then that's it. I was exploring some things, that's why you can see deep blue here, but I didn't eventually use any of this, so let me just delete that. So let me just go back to where I'm coming from. So you can see that that was really scaled really big. So without the null, let me just take away the null like this. I'm coming. So without the node, this is what we have. It's actually very big. So let me just scale it down a little bit. So this is it. So let me zoom in. It's just kind of tilted this way. So basically what I did, so let me just undo all of this, was to scale it bigger, and then I did alpha matte to the sphere, this same sphere here. I did alpha matte so it would show within that range. Then I had to add the mini sphere, which is going to be below it, and that's how I get to do it. Then the null was just to give it that rotation animation basically. So that's how I get to achieve the sphere. So let's go back, and I just did a simple position up, but before then we have another thing here. So you can see this sphere highlight. So if I check this, look at this. So let me adjust. If I uncheck this, so this sphere highlight was just to give it some life. So basically what I did was to create another shape, and then I did set matte with a little bit of fast box blur on it, and I did set matte to the just sphere, right, which is just sphere, so that it can reflect in this. And that's why we have the highlight, or form of a rim light or highlight on the shape. And then we have the sphere control, which is, I believe this is the null that I used to apply to go up. Yes, exactly. And then we have the bottom light. So bottom light is just a simple, I just use a pencil to draw this out, and I make this a gradient, linear gradient, and I also reduce the opacity towards the end. That's why I have this whole thing going on here. And at the end of it, I overlay an adjustment layer with CC vignette, so that to bring the focus, yes, to give us the center as a focus. So without the vignette, this is it. With the vignette, this is very subtle thing there. So if I go back to the main scene, you see that it's actually the same. Even the background, apart from the colors and the shape, the background and the CC star and the radio wave is actually the same. So basically what I did was to apply one animation of this with different kind of shape, but then all I needed to change was these two and replace them with different kind of shapes. And that's how I was able to get this whole thing, but basically just changing the background and the shape itself. So let's go to the next one. So we have the cube, and this was done using Element 3D, and of course I created a material for it. You can see that there's a gradient on it. So basically what I did was, let me uncheck Deep Glow for now. I use the custom texture maps, and I make sure that this is the material I'm using. Let me open up what that looks like. So let me fit to screen. This particular one is not needed here. So this is the gradient that I use. So it's just basically gradient ramp with the color. Then I also adjusted the curves to make it darker. So basically this the material that I use going back. So and that's what I used as custom texture map for this, so that Element 3D can use it. But I have to go to the setup. This is the setup, and this is my box. I created it using the native tool here, and all I needed to do was to make sure I added the material on it. And if I click on the material that I use and I scroll down, and I actually had to do some tweaking here on it, make sure I reduce the diffuse, reduce the ambient, tweak the environmental multiplier, and of course I had to make sure that the diffuse is actually making use of the material that I have selected from the Element 3D. That's basically how I get to achieve this. Then I apply on this, and I was able to create this. You can watch my previous tutorial on any of my Element 3D tutorial. You know how I get to achieve this. It's actually quite simple. So check my previous tutorial for that. I'm pretty sure I'll be putting some link in the description. So that's how I get to achieve the cube. Quite easy, simple to do. And yeah, then practically with these two. So I will refer you to my previous tutorial when I actually did how to create something like this. So in order for me to save some time, I won't go in depth on how I created this, but just know that this same concept I actually used to create all of this. So this particular one was just the same sphere with different color, but then I needed this ring going around it. You would think I used a shape. I actually used text for this. So basically how I get to achieve this, let me quickly show you how I get to achieve that. Let me just quickly create a new composition. So this will be like a quick tutorial in this breakdown. So what I did was this, click my text tool, and then just put dash, and let me change the color to white. All I would now do is to create circle and ellipse while the text is selected, and do something like this. And then I would have to go to the text, open up my path option, then I will have to select the mask, and as soon as I do that, it's going to wrap it around, and then I can now start tweaking the settings here. They'll make it spread or make it go wherever I want it to be. So I can keep tweaking this. I can reverse the path and then force the path, and then just keep adjusting, right? So this is how I get to achieve it. But then how did I achieve it to make it go round? So let me first of all make sure that I have more dashes. All right, so I have this all surrounded. Then all I needed to do was to make this 3D, and I have to make sure the anchor point is at the center first. So let me change the anchor point to the center, and then change this to 3D. Then I can now do R for rotation, then have something like this. And with this, you can achieve really cool stuff. And it's actually, compared to if you use shape when it just be overlapping in any way, in any form, this was actually quite easier for me to create and have my manipulation in the scene. Basically, that's how I get to achieve that. So let me just come here and delete this. Just in case you want more tutorial on this, let me know in the comment section. And basically, let me go back to where I'm coming from. Okay, so basically what I did there, the dashes were actually much, so that's why you cannot notice it's actually dashes. And then I just added some rotation animation for it, and then of course attach everything to a null so it can all goes up as planned. If I keep going, then this particular one, this was actually the tutorial that I did, so I don't have to go in depth into this. Then the same concept apply for this. So if you notice, it's not the same animation. All I needed to do was just to cut them at the point where I needed the other ones to show up. That's basically what I did. And this next scene. So for the second part, right, before I even talk about this, I'd like to talk about the transition. So you can see that as this is going down, right, this just comes, so this is just simple match cut transition. You can try and check my previous tutorial on how to achieve match cuts, but then let's now go into this. So if you notice, I have a black background, then this is starburst, which is practically the same thing. Then I have my sphere, which they're all gradients, right? They're all green color, and I actually had more colors to them, the gradient and the deep glow, right? And I reduced the value of the exposure. All I needed to do was just, I parented it to a control, the null control. So let me just zoom in some more. And then aside from that, I also animated the gradient itself. Can you see that it's actually going around? And you do that by animating the start point and end point. So let me quickly open that up for you. When you open up your ellipse, you see the property, the gradient stroke. So I actually animated the start point and the end point so that it will just go according to the animation, right? As it's scaling down, it's also rotating in that manner. Then aside from that, of course, the positioning, and I have a little bit of some, will I say, scale down as well. At this point, you can see that this pushes up. So instead of me having the scale really aligned, I just uncheck the X and Y axis of the scale and actually have that stretch of the scale. So that's how I get to achieve this circle stroke there. And of course, I actually attach null to this for the position or the positioning when it's coming down. And practically that's what I did for everything. So this is now gradient field. This was just a white stroke, then a gradient ellipse as well, gradient square, gradient triangle. So I just have it coming down. So let me show you maybe the ease, see if that would interest you. So this is the ease I've been using. So it's coming from the fastest point and then slow it down towards the end. That's basically the idea. So it's just coming down, everything coming down, and of course attach everything to a null where it's just scale and position them down. And then at this point where it's scaling down, I needed it to just push up, more like an anticipation for the next animation. So if you notice, it goes up and then it stops here. And if I go back to the scene, at the point where it stops, this takes over, right? So the reason why I have this that makes it look so cool was because I actually have something here that I did. So let me open this up. From here you see this, but then I actually had motion blur to this. I know that a lot of people say, oh, don't use motion blur. And I would say use it when necessary, right? For me, I feel like this motion blur towards the beginning makes this transition really look cool. So I used it, but I would advise don't use too much motion blur in your animation, makes you look amateur. But for me, I needed to use it because this point makes it really look good and set the illusion of the transition, the smooth transition. So Yeah, you can see that this is the position of where it is. So let me uncheck this. So this is the position where I want it to start animating from, and I've actually done some experiments. That's why I actually have all of this adjusted. So at this point, what I did was to take a snapshot of this, right, and then come here and put this is the reference snapshot and activate it. I have this one here, so I needed to know how I should go from here, how the animation should go smoothly from here. So I just made sure that after the anticipation, then adjusted the animation to where it will be at that position. So if I activate my reference and reduce the opacity a little bit, I was able to make sure that this cuts perfectly to where I want it to be. So I also made sure, so let me highlight all of this, right, and press U, that when they're all going down, you can see this is the shape itself and the control that it lands here. And if you check my ease, let me just open one of the ease so you can see the kind of ease I'm using. So can you see that towards the end, it's at the fastest. So that's what to sell that match cut transition. So that's basically how I get to achieve that smooth transition. Okay, so the major takeaway is take a picture reference of the next scene you are trying to do, or maybe you do it before anyone that comes first, that's fine, but you can always take a picture reference of the position of the next scene and then try and have a match cut animation that goes straight to it. So that's the whole point of this. So I'll deactivate this and then we'll go to the next scene now. So if I come here, these are just position animation in 3D. I make sure all of them is in 3D. And if you check if I switch my view layer to 2, so when you can see the top, so I was switching from the active camera to the top view, so I was able to see my animation. So I created a null that will make it rotate at the center, which is this null is at the center, and then it rotates round. Can you see it's one rotating around? So with the top view, I was able to see how this is going to be going, and all of this comes with their own controls as well. So with the control, I was able to apply their own animation as well, which is the rotation while it's going. So I don't think I did for this. So let me try this cube, right, and press U. So you can see the cube and stroke, which is this one here. Let me switch back to one view. This particular one here, the one I'm pointing at right now, so you can see that it has this position, and then it also has the rotation animation. So you can see that as it's coming down, it's also rotating to the side. So if I play this now, you can see the subtle rotation movement, right? Can you guys see the subtle rotation movement? Okay, and then we now have the main control that takes over the rotation again. Right, so basically I just have a whole lot of null. So the main control takes over the whole animation as it goes up and then rotate the main thing, while the individual controls, or the individual nulls controls the individual shape itself. And for this, the reason why this was still able to look as if it's in 3D is because when I go to my sphere here, I right click, then go to transform, go to auto orient, and you see that it's always going to be off, but we have to switch it to orient towards the camera, so it will always face the camera even while it is rotating. Okay, so that's how I get to achieve this. So let's go back to the main scene. We go to this next scene. Before I go to the next scene, let me quickly explain this towards the end of the part. So let me bring in my video itself and let me play it from here. Right, you can see towards this part when it goes up, so basically it's still that same main control that drags it up. So let me quickly show you that. So the main control, which is this, has the position animation that drags it up and then rotate at the same time, and I make sure towards the end it was at its fastest, and at the same time I was animating the opacity, which is me introducing this new background, the opacity of the new background. If you also notice an adjustment layer, I added CC Force motion blur. So I just wanted a blur here, right, so that it should make it look as if it's really running really fast. So this is where I actually use blur intentionally, right? That's what is selling that fast, very fast movement that you can see right here. So let me play this. Right, of course, when this goes up, so I'm going back to my next scene now. I introduce this here. Let me open this up. So I had the background, a CC starburst background, then the circle, which was just a normal stroke, which I turned to 3D, then I rotated. Then I have all the text, right? So basically I had all the text within it. The last thing here, then I have this text movement. It was perimeter to this, so if I press U, it was actually perimeter to this, so this was bringing it down. So basically what I did to the text was to have opacity animation, right? And I offset them a little bit, and some of the text was stroke, like the X was just stroke with deep glow, and the O2 was just stroke. I actually animated the gradient as well. So if I open this up, you can see the angle, right? You can see that at one point the angle of the gradient was just moving around, which gives it a very, very cool look. And after that, I have this ball going around. This particular ball here that goes around it is just a simple ellipse circle, and I created a null for it, make it 3D. The null is at the center of the composition, right? So let me switch to two views again. You can see this is the main ellipse that goes around it, and then this is the ball here. So the null is at the center, and I attached it to the null, and when I rotate it, it will just go around. So basically that's what I did to make it rotate round and then rotate backward. And if I switch back to my one view and go back, and basically that's it for how I get to achieve this. Aside from that, I actually had some adjustment layer. So the very first one was the curve, which was to do some form of color correction. So this is without the color correction, this is with the color correction. It's actually very subtle, you might not notice this. So I actually added some noise to avoid column bendings, and added vignettes. So maybe you notice all of this here. Vignettes, this is without the color correction, this is without the noise, this is without vignette. So if I added all of this back, you see all of this change. Now of course, one more important thing is I needed to change this to 16 bpc so that I can get more color accuracy, and that's how I get to achieve this loop. If you want to see some specific part of this loop, maybe you want me to go deeper, you want to have me to have a deeper dive into one particular part of this tutorial, let me know in the comment section. I'll be glad to do that. But don't forget, I've actually done a very extensive tutorial on how I achieve these 3D shapes using Element 3D, so please make sure you check that out, and then I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Alright guys, I really hope you do enjoy that. Don't forget, the project file is in a link in the description, and it's also a way of you supporting me. If you really know I worked so hard to get this done, to get these videos across to you, if you really want to support me, try and get the project in the link in the description. If you do like this video, make sure you do like it, and of course subscribe if you're new to this. Click on the bell icon to get real-time updates from me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.